Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today. Discover your best return on attention with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We are close to 25 members on Zoom and close to 50 members on Facebook. I have Anushri helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness.
Oh, thank you very much, JM. Good to see you. Hey, Josh. Good to see you. Nice to be with all of you again, and thank you for joining. And on this program, you're perfectly welcome to turn your camera on because it's a tight knit group, and so we don't mind. However, you like to hang out, one way or the other. And today's topic is perennial because we all have something in common that has to do with the title today. What do you think that is? Well, according to the yogic teachings and the process of meditation, what we have in common is our attention. Because literally, as sentient, conscious beings, we are units of attention. And our free will, our volition, which is an exciting term. These are exciting terms because we get to choose something. That means when we have volition. And what is it that we're choosing from moment to moment, or perhaps not choosing because we've gone into kind of a consensual trance and we're being carried along? That is where we place our attention. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, I say we because hopefully you'll contribute by giving me your reflections and questions. Where's the best place to put our attention? Where do we get the best ROA? Not ROI, but return on attention. And this is an essentialized teaching that comes from the ancient Vedas and the yogic texts, because oftentimes with so many distractions in our lives, so many options, our attention can go in many different directions. There's an old saying that if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either of them. However, if we have a clear idea about where our fulcrum of power is, and that is our attention, and where to place it, and what comes of that by being very deliberate and where we give our attention, where we choose to invest it, then we'll get the best out of life. This is the theory that I'm working on today. And I have some evidence to back it up, why this is actually a topic, and I hope you like it. But before we do that, let's start off with what we know as spiritual cognition or inner directedness. I hope you like some of these terms. Intense concentration of the heart, self-known, knowing the self, that is directly in the openness of consciousness. These are all various terminologies for what some people call meditation. Introspection is a word I like because it sounds less intimidating. If I'm going to meditate, I start thinking about going to the Himalayas, sitting in a cave or under a tree somewhere. But introspection seems a little more doable here in the Bay Area or wherever I might be at a particular time. Introspection, it just means to look within. That sounds okay. So let's try it. One of the most simple and effective yogic techniques is to sit up a little straighter than we were a second ago, meaning that as soon as you adjust your spine, and not in such a rigid way that you feel uncomfortable, but just a little bit straighter, then your mind starts to take things seriously, like, oh, so we're going to do something important. Just like when you sit for an interview, you sit up probably a little straighter if you want the job, and not as straight if you don't want it. And then close your eyes and just take a moment to unburden yourself from what? The chatter of the mind, the various ways in which the mind may be telling you that you have so much to do, But now that your eyes are closed and you're in this safe environment, just consider this for a minute. There's not that much that you really have to do. You came into this world with a very complex body that's performing all of its functions automatically. For instance, homeostasis is going on without you having to check on it every few seconds. Your digestion is working just fine, I hope, without you monitoring it. It just happens to work, and so does everything else in the body. And according to the ancient yogic texts that help to guide us in meditation, you may think about this as you enter into your meditation. That is, everything's where it should be. There's not one particle in this universe that's out of place right now, because there's a higher force working behind everything, the same force that organizes the various systems in our body. There's prana, or life, that's moving up and down our spinal columns. The subtle mind is operating. The intelligence is informing us, just don't walk that way, walk this way, and so forth. There's a benevolent force in the universe. Thoreau, when going out into the wilderness, noticed that he practically was going insane in the city, and he's coming back to sanity by connecting with that universal force. We can do that. So breathe and feel the nourishing nature of your breath. And in that, if you add in a pinch of gratitude that you're able to breathe, then your attention will go to your breath out of gratitude, and just noticing how when you consciously breathe, your mind also becomes more peaceful and relax, but let your mind stay alert. And as you're breathing, observe the outward and inward breaths, and let your mind rest on that observation. And if it goes somewhere else, just bring it back and give it a rest. And now, if you will, bring your attention to your heart region, which is said to be the seat of emotion. And see if you can identify an intention that you have in your heart. And just notice it, that it's there. We keep many intentions in our heart. They're very subtle. We develop them over time by association, by our own cultivation and study. And when the time is right, we act upon them. But just notice that you have intentions. They're not necessarily you, they're objects like other objects you may have in your life, and you're observing them. You are a container, and you're keeping those intentions in your heart. Be aware that they're there. And now become aware of your own consciousness. That is, be aware that you're aware. It's not double talk. Because we're units of awareness, we can become aware that we're aware. And just rest in that space for a minute. And now we'll test the process of meditation by sound, called mantra meditation. The primordial sound vibration, single syllable mantra from the ancient yogic texts is spelled A-U-M or pronounced Om. This brings a spiritual energy that helps to synchronize our intentions in the heart. So I'm going to play a note. And I'll repeat the syllable Om 3 times. And you can repeat it with me behind muted mics. And just for a few minutes, a few seconds, notice the resonance. If you put 2 tuning forks near each other and you hit one, the second one, without being struck, will begin to vibrate. By the power of mantra meditation, there's a resonance with our consciousness that's clarifying, synthesizing when we chant the mantra. Please bring your awareness back to your breath. And then rub your 2 hands together. If you have 3 or 4 hands, you can rub those together too. And bring some energy to your external body. Realize that you have an external body. Open your eyes and come back into the room. And I'm going to present some evidence for my theory about return on attention and why it's important. And when I say evidence, as JM mentioned, I grew up, well, from the time I was 16, I lived in an ashram, like a monastery, and there I studied under a teacher and learned many of the ancient Vedic texts. And in one of them, called Bhagavad Gita, there is a statement that I like to come back to throughout the day, and it's relevant here. And it says that whatever you focus on becomes part of you. And it's a explanation for how I become intricately connected to the world. For instance, if I have a house or a car or a family or a pet or a body, and I'm a sentient being, how is it that I feel that these are all part of me? Well, this verse explains. It says in Sanskrit first, dhyato, which is the word for meditation or contemplation. Vishayan pumsam. Vishayan means my senses, and if I use my senses to focus on a particular object in this world, and then I think of that object as something I would like to keep, that I would like to have, that I'd like to control or enjoy, then what happens is I develop, by the power of my consciousness and the way I've directed my attention, I develop a sangha. So the word sangha means, anga means a limb, like my arm is a limb of my body. It's an anga. And let's just say I look at a bicycle and I say, oh, I have to have that bicycle. It's a white bicycle. I always wanted a white bicycle and it looks pretty snazzy. And just think how I'd look driving around on that thing. Of course, I'd have to lock it up. All these thoughts go in my mind. And then pretty soon I'm connected to it. Perhaps I go and give it more attention. I shop for it. And then I start seeing white bicycles everywhere. And then I actually go exchange some of my hard-earned money for it. And then it's my bicycle. And it becomes part of my life. I start by contemplating it. I look at it, and then it takes a place in my life. And I don't even have to own the object. It can be a concept, like a sports team. Sometimes people, they'll look at a sports team, their friends say, hey, well, look at this. These people running around kicking something, and they wear a special uniform. And then somehow or other, my consciousness goes into it. And then I'll say, I am a such and such fan. A fan is short for, I hate to say it, but fanatic. There are implications there. And when my team wins, then I become ecstatic. And when my team loses, then I'm morose, maybe even suicidal, depending what culture I'm from. And this is absurd in one way, because I didn't play. I mean, it's absurd in another way, because it's a bunch of grown people kicking a ball around. We're in an infinite universe, and they just arbitrarily put up some kind of line. They put a line or a net and said, you know, this is important. And if you can kick that ball through there, I'm going to give you $2 million. And, you know, so it's bizarre on that level. And the other level is that really it's not you. It's not your, you know, you say it's your team, but what if they move to another city? You'll be heartbroken and say, well, they're not my team anymore. Or maybe you will follow them. But the point is, you made a sangha. It's a part of you now. It's connected. So I connect to the various objects in my life, ideas, ideologies, people, and so forth. Through dhyato, I meditate on it. What did I do? I placed my attention there. And if I place a lot of attention in a particular area, then that will become more of my what's in my life, more and more. I may make a study of something, and then that becomes my main designation in life. Oh, there's the person who has a master's, PhD, something. What did they do? They gave their attention to a particular topic for 4, 6, 8, 10, I don't know, 20 years. And now you ask them a question, they'll tell you all about it. They put their attention there. They have a sangha with it. So the way that we apportion our attention is vital. And of course, as you've heard me say many times, where attention goes, where our attention goes, our energy flows. And that's where we go. But we have choice. We have choice about where to place our attention. Now, to essentialize the teachings of yoga and meditation, there are higher and lower energies. There are more and there are important and less important places to put your attention. It's not all the same. There are higher and lower energies. This is the contention of books like and teachings of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. The Bhagavad Gita describes there are some things that are more important than others. As I think it was Brian Tracy used to say, don't major in minor things. Or as the author of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People said, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So what is the main thing? And where is that place where I can put my attention most frequently, where I will get the best return on my attention? That's the topic today. So before I start showing you all kinds of slides, let's just see, I'd be curious to hear if you have any reactions to the topic in general, or any preliminary questions that you think I'm not going to answer when I give the rest of my talk. What do you think?
Hi,
Yes.
So I just wanted to share with you what happened over the weekend.
Okay.
Over the weekend, we watched a movie, which is called Funny Games. It's a 2007 movie, and it was originally made in Germany in 1997. It's such a disturbing movie that got me so riled up. I won't give out the plot, so if for all of you who are interested, you can watch. But I got so very angry because these are 2 teenagers. They go from house to house and they bother people and they kill people. And to them, it's a funny game. And it doesn't follow the normal, hey, the right people always win and all that. And so I got so angry about it. And even after I took a walk and even after the movie was done, I can still feel it in my body, that this restlessness, that I feel powerless, that I cannot right the wrong because the movie is done, it's over. There's nothing I can do about it. So that goes to what you just said about where do you focus your attention? Even when I'm laying in bed trying to sleep, my mind, if I don't do meditation, my mind drifts back to the plot. Like, what would I have done? How could I have done differently? But it's like, in the end, the result always bugs me. Like, if I had done it differently, can I really escape that fate of the family in the movie? I have to be like, take a step back. It's not reality. Don't spend so much time and energy on it.
You always make such practical points. They're not only practical, but they're just so aligned with the topics. Thank you very much. That was really helpful. And it really goes to this point. It's an investment. I put my consciousness into it. Another way I like to put it is that we are containers. And what we fill ourselves up with, it will determine our contentment. The content and content are spelled the same way. And so what we put in is what's going to be there. It's what's going to stay in. Therefore, you'll find in the Yoga Sutras, any of you students of the Yoga Sutra or read the Yoga Sutra, you can maybe put it in the chat box. I'd be interested to know. It's very popular in the yoga world these days. There are several different translations. Yes, Rajiv has read. In there's an interesting statement in one of the commentaries I read recently, which is about how meditators, ancient yogis, he's referring to, who were extremely careful about what they put in their consciousness, he said, are as sensitive as an eyeball. And what did that mean? If you consider your eye is the most sensitive, one of the most sensitive surfaces on your whole body. And if even a tiny hair gets in there, you'll notice it. If a hair lands on your foot, you may not so. And so the yogis are aware that what I put in is going to stay in and affect me. Therefore, they're careful about what they allow to go in and very deliberate about keeping their minds free of, well, I mean, corporate world, garbage in, garbage out. That's well known, right? Yeah. What other comments? Is there anything else in there, JM? Anyone just responding to the ideas so far?
Can I?
Oh, yes, please.
So when you said about a return on investment, so or return in attention, what came to my mind was the word return, what the return means. And I am in a point in my life that I don't know what exactly the return is. Because if you look at like 100 people, there are maybe 100 definition of return, and everybody may say the return that I have the best. People look at, they say happiness. Even happiness is not the same for two different people. Some people just reading a book that make them happy. Some people go to like be a sport fan, may be really happy. Some people get money, maybe very happy. And it's very hard for myself or like any person, I think, to really find out what the best return means for myself, because whatever return is defined for you, maybe it's not the return for me. And I don't know how, where to find it, to search it, but there are very noisy place here. A lot of books, a lot of movies, a lot of talk, and removing the noise for myself, it's the hardest thing. And I'm really interested to see what the return on attention means in your world.
Okay. Yeah, and fair enough. These are important points. And this would go to a premise, an axiomatic truth. That is, you have to have some axiom when you're doing geometry. You start with this is a given, and then you go from there. And as Aristotle pointed out, unless you have a given to start with, then you have infinite regress, and you're not really going to go anywhere. You'll continue to retreat. So the premise, the axiom that's given in the yogic teachings is that we are non-material entities. That is, we are different from matter. And we can experience that in our incongruity with matter. There's a kind of frustration. I don't know about you, but definitely I feel it. I mean, I always want to be young, and I would like to be always healthy. If anybody feels differently, I don't know, but I have this sense that I always want to be healthy. I mean, I exercise every day. I walk, I do yoga, everything. And there is a nagging feeling that, yes, I want to be healthy. It's not that I want to fall apart. Nonetheless, warranties run out on the body parts. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they start running out faster. Someone told me the other day, 60 is the youth of old age. I'm 64, and I'm starting to notice it. So there's a dichotomy, and this dichotomy is an axiomatic truth from the yogic teaching, is that we are subtler than matter, and therefore, when we interact with matter, we're not satisfied. There's a beginning and an end to the happiness, and therefore it's not considered to be happiness at all, because real happiness is that which persists. It never stops, it continues. And it's much more subtle than what we get by just mixing it up with matter. So that's the premise, that there are degrees of happiness, and the more subtle it is, the more we can actually appreciate it. And the most subtle is when we're in contact with those objects of our attention that are beyond the what is called in the Vedas really the contamination of the lower energies. And there are energies that are non-material. So that's the axiomatic process. Now, how do you know that? Well, first of all, you don't have to compare yourself to other people at all. Even in regular yoga classes where they teach asanas, it's the first thing the teacher will tell you. Now, don't look around and compare yourself to others. At least all my teachers have always said that. Just do what you can with what you have, and everyone's unique. So that's important also. Stay within yourself and judge by yourself. Now, here's something I think you might find encouraging that comes from one of the Bhakti Yoga teachings. And it says that the experience of happiness that you get through the practice of yoga, which really means putting your attention on this higher spiritual energy, is very much like eating in this sense. When I eat food, I feel nourished, satisfied, and my hunger goes away. Does that sound like an accurate statement? Let's say I eat a good meal. It was cooked by somebody in high consciousness. It's organic. It's the kind of, it's nonviolent. It's fresh. It's beautiful. I eat it. I'm very hungry and I eat it and I feel nourishment. I feel satisfaction. And I know for myself that my hunger is going away. We don't have to fly in an oversight committee to decide whether I am getting nourished or whether I'm satisfied. I know for myself. So the yoga teachings say that when you connect to this higher energy, you'll know it. You'll know it when you see it. And you'll feel it for yourself just the way you feel satisfied, nourished, and your hunger goes away when you eat. Fair enough? So that's called pratyaksha. You see it for yourself. It's direct.
Yes.
And it has to be that way because, spiritual practice can't remain on a philosophical, theoretical level. You actually have to taste something yourself. It can't just be dogma. It can't just be, philosophy that is always out of reach, that just bewilders the mind. But you actually have to be able to feel something really in the heart that connects you and says, this is real. And we know these things. When the sun comes up in the morning, nobody has to tell us, hey, that's the sun. It just came up. He's like, hey, I know, I can see it for myself. So spiritual practice, Bhagavad Gita says this, pratyakshavagaman dharmyam. The perfection of a spiritual practice is that you can see it for yourself. So that was an excellent question, by the way, and well framed. Thank you for putting that out there for everyone's benefit. I really appreciate it. Well, JM, let's show a few slides before I run out the clock, as usual. Okay, so looking at subtleties and intentions. Remember, we looked at our intentions inside in this happiness graph you see on the left. And here we have the various categories of intention. For instance, if you're working out of greed or fear or prospect, do you notice that they're becoming a little more refined and perhaps more virtuous as I go to the right? Tell me if you feel that. Greed, fear, prospect means what do I get out of this? That's kind of like right in the middle. Duty, which is higher than prospect. I'll do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Gratitude, I'm working out of gratitude. And how about love? That's that all-encompassing. That gratitude has become full-blown. And now the reason I'm working is out of love. So according to the Vedic system of happiness, our intention and the way that we work and move in the world develops or determines our happiness, and our happiness increases the more subtle our intentions are. I'll come back to the number line later because it's something I wanted to talk to Wolf about if he's on the call, because Wolf, if you're there, let me know, because you kept asking me about Alan Watts and I had a few things to say about him. Okay. Return on investment is a ratio between net profit and cost of investment. So, there's a cost to where we put our attention, It's not inconsequential. So just as one would evaluate where he or she puts his or her money, hopefully, before you just put it anywhere. And if if you don't feel like that, we'll have a talk afterwards. I can give you some pointers. Return on your high return investment, the investment gains, you get higher gains favorably compared to its cost. So your attention is your most important investment. Okay. So meditation, as we talked about at the beginning, is an intense concentration of the heart on the best ROA, return on attention. So there are many things that we can focus our mind on, but the idea behind meditation in a very broad sense is, where am I going to place my attention? Because meditation can also be done by the work that we do. This is called karma yoga. I'm working, and as I'm working, I'm moving around, I'm moving energy around, but my intention is way over on the right-hand side. It's past prospect. When I'm thinking, what am I going to get in return for this? I'm in a kind of anxiety when I'm working. When I start working out of gratitude, if you've ever done any volunteer work where you're thinking like, I just appreciate this, what these people are doing, or its cause is so important to me, and you're working in that way, you're feeling like a free spirit, I would imagine. Or you can, that's how you feel. And when you're working out of love, it's all encompassing. Your meditation becomes very complete. Emotional connection out of love is the highest kind of what's called samadhi, or fixity of mind on a particular object. For instance, if there's somebody you love, it doesn't matter where you are, you're always thinking about that person, right? Constantly. And whatever situation you're in, you're able to overcome any distance or lack of communication in other ways because of the power of the love. Okay. So in the Gita, I talked about this point of what you contemplate becomes part of you. And so be careful where you allow yourself to contemplate, because just know that when you're doing that, if you're not deliberate about it, that is what you're going to connect to in the world. And we heard that really great example about watching a movie, and then later on it repeats on you, just like if you eat a meal that was way too spicy or something like that. People say it's repeating on me. It has its consequences. Okay. So look at the word attention, attention. So that AT in the beginning is the morphing of the D becomes a T to match with the T in 10. So ad means toward, and 10 means to stretch. So attend means to, like when you attend to something, you stretch towards it. And it also has a sense of connection, like a string connects one thing to another, or a tendon has the word tend, it connects to something also. So attention is the active direction of the mind upon some object or topic. And shun, it makes it into a noun, and it indicates the result of a verb. So attention, it's kind of a neat little package of 3 subwords that indicate a phenomena which is extremely vital and important in our lives. Here's a little, this is a major motion picture that we filmed recently. Last time it was in India, which was a while ago because of this pandemic. But please, this has just a few points, and I hope you like it. Okay, I'm looking at you right now. I'm giving you my glance. Can you see me? Can you feel what's coming from my eyes? This is a subject that's very deep, because actually, what's in a glance? What's actually coming out of me and touching you, and coming out of you and touching me? From a glance, we feel something. In fact, have you ever passed by a friend in a hallway and he or she didn't look at you? They didn't give you their glance? How do you feel? I know how I feel. I suddenly feel maybe he or she doesn't care about me anymore. Isn't that interesting? Now here's another concept. The body is described in the Bhagavad Gita to be a yantra, or a machine. So if the body's a machine, what is a doctor? A doctor is a mechanic. And how about a psychologist? A psychologist is a software engineer, because the body is like hardware and the mind is like software. But if that was the case, why do we make such a big deal about bedside manner when it comes to physicians? Why would we even care if we were just machines? The fact is, Bhagavad Gita says, we're sentient beings. Now think about that word, sentient. Sentient means also that we're sensitive. And why are we sensitive? Because we're conscious. So remember that your glance is powerful. And remember the healing power of caring about other people. We're sentient and therefore we care. And when you care about others, they feel it because they're sentient too. Thank you very much for tuning in, and keep your glance going in beneficial ways because you're very powerful. Thanks a lot and have a fantastic day. Actually, that's the point I brought up in the title, which is we're more powerful than we know. We're creating our world as we move about. It's not random. How we apportion our attention, I keep using that phrase, will determine what starts to come into my life. And also, as indicated in that little video, there's a way that we affect others by where we place our attention. I mean, animals are very sensitive to attention, right? Miriam?
Yes.
Yes. So, they notice if you don't, that they're sensitive, they feel. So where we're glancing, a glance is not insignificant. You'll notice it if you look at somebody, they feel it. I've given this example several times, but if you're driving in a car and you look at the passengers in the car next to you, they'll look back and they'll sort of, there will be a reaction. I don't know what it will be, but definitely they'll feel it. You're touching the environment by your glance. You're powerful, you're conscious, sentient. It is above matter. It's not a material combination. It's something that is transcendental. It's above matter. Okay, let's see a few more practical points. And feel free to jump in at any time, really. This is open for discussion. So this is another point about attention, because I mentioned earlier, okay, let's just place our attention in the most important places, but maybe I can't. What about if I'm addicted to a screen somehow and I just want to keep watching stupid stuff over and over again? I've heard about a phenomenon where people get attached to games. It happens to kids. There's a kind of chemical that comes out in the brain when they start playing a game. I don't know. I've heard there's one called, I'm not going to mention any brands. I've heard about them. I've never played any of them. I'm happy to say. I did see Pac-Man. That was back in, I don't know when it was, 70s or 80s. But it can become addictive. And how do we change that? So we're attentive to what we think will bring us pleasure. So changing our attention habits takes a little practice. It's not automatic. Our attention goes in a certain direction. Okay, why does it go there? Let's see. Our taste is driven by our conditioning. We become conditioned by the modalities. And there are three main modalities, as spoken of in the wisdom literatures, that condition us in various ways. So sattva is the modality of light, virtue, wisdom, and so forth. And when we have this conditioning in our life, when we're in connection with sattvic lifestyle, then we resonate with the spiritual chord. There's a spiritual chord in the universe that we resonate with naturally when we're in sattva. we also see the unity of all living beings and energies. That's kind of beautiful. And a definitive statement of somebody in Sattva mind would be, reality is one and people speak about it in various ways. So it's not that, one's right, one's wrong. There's a way of reconciling everything in the world. Because Sattva means we see that everything has an original source and we're all part of it. Work without reward seeking or greed. So the way one works in Sattva is without reward seeking. That's way over on the right side of that graph, up towards duty and gratitude and love. And we're not affected by success or failure because we're not attached to the results. Doesn't mean we do a shoddy job, but it means that we see that the result isn't ours. And finally, Bhagavad Gita says unbreakable determination when you're in Sattva. Okay, next one is Rajas. Rajas is a lower mode. There's two lower modes beneath Sattva. And in Rajas mind, we see and emphasize the differences in other living beings and see the duality of energies. So there's all kinds of isms. There's racism, speciesism, nationalism. When we get into this idea that we're all different and we're in competition with one another, not united. This comes from Rajas mind. It's just a filter we're looking through. There's attached to the results of work, greedy, and moved by joy and sorrow. That's Rajas mind. And finally, the determination wavers in success or failure. If I'm successful, I like it. If not, then I quit. Okay. And finally, tamas mind. Sorry to put this little kid on the spot over here, but has the poster child for tamas. But tamas mind means spiritually unaware. And as far as the philosophical part of a tamas mind, attached to dogma theories based on speculation, conspiracy, work ethic, lazy, cheating, procrastinating, determination, can't go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, and moroseness. So these are just brief descriptions of the three modalities. And so when I'm in a particular mode of nature, I'm conditioned by it, and therefore I seek a particular object, and I make that my object of attention according to the modality I'm in. So the practice of yoga, if we come into the Zoom room for a second, is holistic. It is based on upgrading our conditioning so that we're in Sattva mind. So we see the unity of all beings, so that we see the energies in consort with one another, that they're not in competition, but they're working in a particular way to bring about a higher purpose. This is Sattva mind. And when we combine that with the process of meditation, introspection, the lifestyle, then there's combustion. Then we get that direct experience I was talking about, Miriam, of what is happiness. It is our nature to be happy, actually. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. I hope I'm not going too fast. If I am, and somebody slow me down, stop me, but this will bring a few of the points together, because the conclusion of this is to rise above the conditioning, and not even in Sattva. And the next slide shows some of the symptoms of what we call metaphysical thinking, metaphysical life. So metaphysical, that means beyond the physical, beyond even the modalities that I listed there before. So that's called consciousness in its free state. Here are some of the symptoms. Happy for no reason. Tell me if you can identify with it. Happy for no reason. There's no reason you're happy. It's just you are happy because the nature of consciousness in its free state is bliss, ananda. There's nothing that delimits you. You're not held back by the sanghas that you've created in the world, where you think, I am my car, and if my car gets scratched, I'm scratched. same thing. I am my body. And therefore, if my body, something falls off my body, I fell apart. You didn't fall apart. Your body's your car. So when you're not fettered by your sanghas to the lower energy of matter, you're happy. I mean, imagine now if you have any debts. I mean, I'm sorry to put you in anxiety in case you do have any debts, but if you do have a mortgage or, you're paying off this or that, and you don't know how you're going to get to the end of it or whatever, just imagine someone comes in and says, I just paid all your debts. Do you feel better? It's like a burden was lifted. So getting out of the modes of nature, the modalities that tie me to matter, the lower clunky energy that I can't relate to, it's cause for celebration. I feel naturally happy when I'm beyond that. I mentioned this is also a symptom of being in spiritual consciousness. You see the unity of all beings, not their differences. Of course, it doesn't mean that a tiger and a security guard are the same thing, or a person and your friend and a lion are the same. And I go and pat him on the head, the lion, because I see they're actually, there's a unity between, because there's a spiritual nature within. No, there's a practical side too. Even as I'm seeing unity, I'm seeing that the covering of that spiritual being is different, and I have to interact in a practical way. I can talk more about that later or another session. It's a big topic. Seeing the harmony and serendipity of events of the world, that's a product of spiritual mindset beyond the modes. Living in the pragmatic present. Did we find out if a wolf is here today? He didn't check in, did he? Because I want to save some time for him if he did. A pragmatic presence means I'm no longer lamenting about the past, and I'm not worried about the future. I'm actually in the eternal present. I like that phrase, pragmatic present. There is no other pragmatism other than being in the present. And we identify with our permanent identity, not our temporary identity, this body. And also the way of work, selfless service. Attached to selfless service in that it is a blissful kind of way to work beyond the modalities. Here are some of the metaphysical values. Metaphysical values include and are not limited at all to these: compassion, honesty, courage, equality, and kind-heartedness. So these are beyond matter. You can't measure them. You can't get a little compassion meter and put it around somebody's arm and then say, hey, you've got compassion. But it's a thing, and it has huge consequences. It's a metaphysical thing. It's not physical. So it's beyond the body and mind and spirit. Okay, let's come back into the Zoom room before our last points. And let's just, any reflections you have.
Wolf is here. He did check in.
Yay, Wolf, you're here. Thanks for checking in, Wolf. I did go back and look a little more on, and this won't break our stride here, because Alan Watts was such an interesting thinker of our time. And when you mentioned his name before, and then I went and did a little more research on him, I remembered why I probably was familiar with him, because it said he was a frequent guest or maybe even a host on KPFA. I don't know if that radio station is still going, but that's what my parents used to listen to when I grew up. And I think he was on there a lot. And so just a segue in a little time we have left, and I'll talk more about him another time, Wolf. But yes, it is, Carrie. Some statements in that resonate with, he said a lot of things, obviously, as you know better than I do, on the meaning of life. To know that you can do nothing is the beginning. Lesson 1 is, I give up. What happens now? You find yourself in what is perhaps a rather unfamiliar state of mind, just watching, not trying to get anything, not expecting anything, not seeking, just trying to relax, just watching without purpose. So we've talked about this phenomena. There's a crossover here. Obviously, it's a metaphysical principle to not identify with one's life situation. We made a distinction between life situation and your life. And when I become attached to the reflections within my mind, that excerpt's from On the Meaning of Life. I think it's from one of his books. I found it on a website. Oh no, Become What You Are. That's the book. Sorry about that, Anupan. This is, a metaphysical principle mentioned in the Bhakti teachings also, to become Sakshi. Sakshi means a witness. Don't get carried away by the whirlpools of the mind, which are constantly telling me a story. There's a narrative, a movie running in there. And if I sit down in that little theater of my mind and I follow it, then just as in any other movie, I'll start crying, then I'll start laughing, and then I'll think the world's over, and so forth. This is my life situation. However, when I'm able to notice that I'm the noticer, I'm watching these things, they're not actually happening to me, they're happening around me, and I've simply been identifying with them. This is one of the aspects of centering oneself in the process of yoga. Of course, he said many, many other things. One of the other statements, you are not going to have to put up with permanent non-existence when you die. This is a theme of all the yoga texts, and it's something that was close to home with me, because when I was a kid, I used to say, well, what is death anyway? And that's another topic we're working on right now. It's called demystifying death. I don't know if everyone will come or everyone won't come to that one, but but this is an interesting point. Is it nothing? And that's what my brother used to tell me when we were kids. It's just nothing. I was like, how could there be nothing? That seemed a little inconvenient to me, because I'm something now, and how does something that has volition become nothing? And even as Alan Watts would say, even the act of denial is a conscious act. So if you try to annihilate yourself by saying you don't exist, you just performed an act of consciousness. So what was that all about? Interesting thinker. I didn't do him justice, but I started, Wolf, as promised. Okay. A couple last slides. One of the most recommended ways to focus one's attention is through the process of mantra meditation. I like to leave with something practical, because what do I do? So fixing one's mind on a potent sound source, PSS, potent sound source. There are sound vibrations where the metaphysical meets the temporal. You say, oh, it's just syllables. They're just words. It's just material sound vibration, but there's a channel that they come through. They get passed down through that channel. And there's, in the theory of mantra, there's the appearance of an avatar who's coming from a higher level of existence into the realm of the modalities to help lift us out of it. That's the idea behind the mantra. So when you say the mantra, it's not simply an inert material phenomena, but it's actually something that is descending. And there are several potent mantras that you can practice. One of them that comes through the tradition that I'm connected with is Nitai Gauranga. This mantra is extremely fascinating, and it actually fills the heart up with a sense of compassion. And so let's just try it a few times. The Nitai Gauranga mantra. You can say this one when you wake up, before you go to bed, and you can sit and chant Nitai Gauranga as a mantra. So for chanting the mantra, if you count how many times you do it, I happen to carry with me a little counter when I walk and things like that. I count my mantras even when I'm walking. Or if I sit down at home, I use some beads and I count on those. And let's see what it feels like to say Nitai Gauranga 10 times and just either listen or say the mantra with me and listen to the sound vibration, just be aware of it. Nitai Gauranga, 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 Nitai Gauranga. That was 10 times. I know that because I counted on my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And counting your mantras when you do them, and if you do that every day and you stay at a number, this is called numerical strength. And the meditation is to hear the sound and keep bringing your attention back to the sound. JM, let's come back into the Zoom room for a minute and just see if anybody has any last reflections or questions or anything that you want to bring up from today's meeting. Okay, thanks, Adi. See you next week. So, is there any one thing that you heard during this session and that stuck in your mind? One concept or phrase, idea that you're taking away with you in your pocket. And then if somebody asks you after you get off of this, what was that guy talking about in there? This is the one thing that you tell him or her.
Carrie says the glance.
Oh, yeah, the glance.
Sundar says, whatever we focus, that becomes a part of us. ZD says, thank you for sharing the wisdom. As usual, see you next week. My glance matters, says L. Colgrove. Where attention goes, energy flows. The axiom. There have been quite a few are coming in. Lipite says, where can we find the video of this session? I'll post it on YouTube. I'll send the link. Jay says, the sentience is more sense than thought. Interesting.
Nice, nice.
Subhadra says, intense concentration of the heart. Zilla says, thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Mike says, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Great.
Pooja says, learn to separate from feelings and thoughts. So yeah, quite a few coming in. Christina says, I'm a container of what I focus on.
Yes. Your content equals your contentment. Content and content. Content and content are the same word, really. They're just used different context.
Lakshmi says, how to direct our attention effectively when we are under the grip of the gunas.
Yes, that requires a little practice. So start with mantra meditation. You can do the 21-day spiritual fitness challenge because it's a holistic approach at trying different things in your life. It requires an all-around slight adjustment, incremental adjustments to various habits that you have in the way you eat, the way you exercise, the way you sleep, the way you organize your space and things like that. It all adds up, and you don't have to do it all at once. I would say we can't do it all at once. It happens by little granules, as I say in Japanese, chiri motsumereba yamatanaru. That means little grains of dust add up to a mountain. And so if we work on our spiritual practice like that, then we will feel naturally encouraged because there will be free gifts that come along with it as we try. JM, I've taken us over the time. I thank you very much and everyone who helped to put on the broadcast today. Thanks all of you for joining today. It was really, I really felt your presence in a very powerful way. And look forward to seeing you next week if everything in the world stays the way it is now.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Good to
I
hear
have a quick
from you.
question for you, maybe for
Yeah?
next time.
Okay.
I want to understand the energy of children in this process. We talk a lot about spiritual concepts for adults and all these concepts, but how can we make sense of in simple terms?
Working with children in
Yes.
spiritual practice?
Yes.
We came to the right person. I love working with kids. I have a whole kids group I work with actually once a week called Youth Jam.
Oh, that's great.
I get together on a Zoom, and actually we've spread it all over the world. We're doing the UK and a lot of different places because, kids, if they don't have a place where they can be conscious and develop amongst themselves, amongst peers doing it, then they just get sucked in. There's a lot of people trying to attract their attention because it's a huge consumer group. And, everyone's trying to say, over here, buy this, look at that, and not necessarily good things for them to look at. So I work with a lot of kids and they love it. Some of them I've been working with for more than, 12, 13 years. And you can see the difference that when they learn the practices of meditation and yoga when they're young, and they also do it in association of peers, and they see them doing it, there's a kind of an encouragement they get. And it's really profound, actually. So I could say a lot more about that, or you can write me and I'll tell you my experiences, but I'm fascinated by kids.
Yeah.
They're just,
that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, they're open slates and they have so much potential. So when they get good, nutritious stuff, then it's powerful. Thanks for asking.
So can JM, okay, so this is the email address. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've been ending these sessions by this a phrase that yogis say way up in the Himalayas. When they greet each other, they say Hari Bol. Can you write it in the chat there, JM? Hari Bol. It just means keep the transcendental vibration going. So if you want to all unmute and say Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Thank you.